Welcome back. As we promised, we are going to shed more light on the important visit of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as he was received yesterday by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and they declared that the Egyptian-Indian relations are moving forward and they turn to be strategic partnership. To shed more light on those relations, we do have the pleasure and the honor to have someone who represented Egypt in India and worked there for years. So he is going to tell us what he had seen there and the similarities between India and Egypt, whether from the people's arena or even the way the political leadership is dealing with different crises. Well, we are very much delighted to have with us live here in the studio my dear guest, His Excellency Ambassador Ayoub Mahmoud Ayoub, former Commercial Minister. Thank you very much for being with us, sir.
Good morning to you and to the viewers.
When I knew that you were going to be my guest, and when I knew that you spent there in India, I think more than 4 years?
Yes, 4 years, yeah.
It's such an opportunity to know more about India as a place, as a country and people in the same time, to know more how they do look at Egypt and how there are a lot of similarities between the two peoples. If you please elaborate.
In fact, my posting to India was when India was at the end of the runway and beginning to fly from economic point of view. When I say economic point of view, it means culture, civilization, pharmaceutical industries, computer science, and all these areas in which India is excelling. We cannot forget that the relations between Egypt and India are old enough. From time of Muhammad Ali, when he imported from India the mangoes, the buffaloes, and the cotton. And so we see the traces of Indian presence in Egypt in the form of our Egyptian long staple cotton. So this is one thing. Other thing is that the non-alignment movement between Nasser, Nehru, Tito, and Sukarno, four countries, that is Yugoslavia, Egypt, India, and Indonesia, was another area where Egypt and India put their hands together for the mutual benefit of the both countries and the peoples of the area. This is another thing. A third component of relations between Egypt and is that we were both colonized by the
Britain.
British for some decades.
For decades.
For some decades. And the railways in Egypt is the first country in the continent in Africa to have railways. India also is the first in that respect. So there is a lot, I see a lot of commonalities.
Many things in common. But do the people there know much about Egypt? And do they know to what extent do we have a kind of a cultural relation with them, taking into consideration that we are both people with the deeply rooted civilization?
Maybe the Egyptians know the
More?
Indians through the Indian films, but the Indians know Egypt from the primary school when they teach them the Egyptian civilization.
History.
How did I know that? It was by chance when I was asked by some students in the primary school. They are asking me about some details about the Egyptian civilization. So I answered, how did you know? We study it. So in the primary school, the students or the pupils in India study Egyptian civilization. So we have a background in the subconscious of the Indians, those who have passed the primary school, that about our civilization. That is why.
Yeah.
When we see that a good percentage of tourists coming from, foreign tourists come to Egypt are coming from India. Why? First, I said the background.
Yeah.
Second, there is steady rise in standard of living, that is the income or disposable income. This means that they are able now to overseas When they go overseas to see another civilization, the nearest to their hearts and to their mind is Egyptian civilization. So they don't go to the Gulf for civilization, of course, with our respect to the Gulf.
Sure.
But they come to Egypt to know more and
Opening
establish.
opening a new market of tourism in India, it's going to be a win-win situation
It
for both.
is.
And
It is.
I think it's one of the topics which were discussed yesterday between the Indian Prime Minister and whether President Sisi or Prime Minister Madbouli or even the Indian community here in Egypt. But to talk about India, and as you've kindly mentioned, that you were serving there when they were taking off,
Yes.
starting the booming economy they
Yes.
have. Have you imagined that India can be the president of the G20, to host the G20, and to be in this position regarding the nuclear activities, regarding the pharmaceutical industries, regarding the way they dealt with many crises? Even the president himself yesterday said it this way: I am confident that the Indian leadership or presidency of the G20 is going to have a positive share in giving solutions to the global economic crises. How do you see this, sir?
India is progressing quickly. When we see the growth rate in India and compared to the United States or Germany or France or the EU as a whole or even China, I find that India is progressing steadily even at the time of COVID and the Ukrainian war.
Despite the thousands of lives which were claimed by COVID-19 in the past 2 years.
And even in the COVID-19, India was a main player in combating it and creating or inventing or
Vaccines and
introducing
generic
the
drugs.
vaccines
Yes.
which were used from Japan to Chile. So the pharmaceutical, as an example, pharmaceutical industry in India is leading the way in the world, not only in
At
the
least
region.
one of the leaders.
Yes, they are leaders. And there is a lot which Egypt can benefit from this strategic alliance between President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Narendra Modi. By the way, he is the head of the BJP party, which Bharatiya Janata Party, which means People's Party of India. It is a right wing. But his success in the economic field and in raising the standard of living of the ordinary Indian. When I say ordinary Indian, I mean the less privileged segment of the community. When I see that the very poor are elevated up to be poor, and poor are going to the middle class, this means that there is economic development which is beneficial to the 1.4 billion.
And tangible on the ground.
Yes.
Can be
Something
felt
we can
that
see.
easy. Yes.
We can see on the ground. This is one thing. Indian industry, by the way, is leading the world in many areas. When we see in computer science,
IT.
in pharmaceutical, I have been to Bangalore. Bangalore is the capital of Karnataka, which is the hub for information technology in India.
Yes.
They are exporting the outcome of the good training and good education.
Yeah.
This is when I see that every pupil, every student in India, he's putting in his mind that he has a goal, that he must succeed, and not 50%, but reach the maximum in his field. So the strong competition between the pupils, the students, is reflected on the economy, I say, because all the Indians are competing with each other.
So investing in the human being, investing in the human resources,
In their
I can
minds.
consider this
Yes.
as one of the key issues or the key factors of the Indian success.
Key factors for development of India the quick development in India is because they are focusing on the minds of the people and helping them and giving them good training and good education. The education there is costly, but it is free. But for all the Indians can afford it, and the government is helping this trend of giving education a priority in every way of life. When we see that, even the employees, they are trained every year. They are trained for 1 month. For example, the government employees, they are not just stable in their offices. No, they go for training every year for 1 month. The latest tendencies and latest development in their fields. So it is a democratic country, as you know, and there cannot. It is when 28 provinces or states in India, each state has its chief minister, and all India has its prime minister.
Yeah.
And each state has its own parliament.
1,400,000,000 people. We are talking about a continent, not
It is a continent,
not a
yet.
country.
When you see that the Muslims there, about 150 million. That is more than Egypt, by
Yes.
the way. And they are prospering in many areas. And certain industries are, will I say, is monopolized by the Muslims in India, like the carpet industry, for example.
Diversity of
Diversity, yes.
there's such diversity in this country, and of course it's normal when we talk about 1,400,000,000 people. But sir, let's return back, if you permit me, to the visit of Modi to Egypt.
Yes.
There are a lot of first time too in this visit.
Yes.
Well, first time since 1997 of an Indian Prime Minister to visit the pyramids, to visit one of the most important mosques, to receive the Mufti of the Republic, Dr. Shawqi Alam, and to have some talks with him, and to be that keen to do all these things in one day. How do you see this busy schedule?
It is a very successful preparation. Thanks to those who prepared this visit and they prepared these meetings with these leading figures in Egypt, in Cairo. It is very important because maybe the ordinary Indian knows about Egypt as culture, but when they come, the president, the prime minister, Narendra Modi, comes and sees these dignitaries and these heads of these organizations in Egypt, and he speaks with them, so he feels the pulse, how deep is this civilization of the Egypt, and how serious we are about having this strategic alliance between two countries, so that, or let us say, call it partnership, not alliance,
Yes.
in fact. And there is a lot which Egypt can gain from, we see, from comparison with India, we see Indian industries are creating a presence in the Indian market. When I say creating presence, I mean creating factories.
Sure. And new startups,
Yes.
whether from India or from Egypt. And there is this kind of mutual appreciation. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi was the first Egyptian president to be the guest of honor
Yes.
in the celebrations, in celebrating the independence of India. It was in January 2023.
Yes.
And yesterday, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi handed Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi with the Nile Order of Merit, which is the highest.
That is the highest in Egypt.
Yes. This is also another signal. This is also another message sent.
It is a message to the Indian leadership, political leadership, that Egypt is serious about having a strong, let us say, partnership with India. It is very important. Maybe it came at last. It is good that it came at last.
Better late than never, you mean?
Better, this is what I mean.
Yeah.
This is what I meant. We were late when I was posted to India. I thought there was a lot of areas in which Egypt and India can cooperate together in a win-win situation, as you like to call it, mutually beneficial for both countries. Whether in industry, when we look to the golden triangle in the Suez area, Suez Canal area. India is creating a presence for the Indian industries in this area. We are caring for, and we know for sure that the bulk of trade, of the foreign trade of India passes by the Suez Canal.
We are their gate to Africa.
We are
And there
also
was
the
an
gate to
Indian
Africa,
delegation
yes.
who met 3 days ago with Vice Admiral Osama Rabia, the head of the Suez Canal Economic Zone, particularly to discuss this and to tackle ways of boosting cooperation between Egypt and India in this field in specific.
In this field, it is very important for us. In many cases, we find that creating a presence for the Indian industry in Egypt is important for Egypt as equally important for India. They have their presence in the Gulf area, but in Egypt, their presence is different.
And to take also into consideration, if you permit me, the Egyptian will to join BRICS, and
Yes.
India is part and parcel of the BRICS. This is a prestigious, let's say, economic alliance, international economic alliance, including India.
It is very important that Egypt will
India,
become
Brazil,
a member
Russia,
in BRICS.
India, Brazil, Russia,
South Africa,
South Africa,
and
yes.
China.
China, yeah.
Yes, these 5 countries now Egypt applied, and already Egypt is a member of the bank of the BRICS bank. So we have a base in the BRICS, and we need to be a part of, will I say, block or gathering, rather than block gathering, which is very important, because this means that these countries, BRICS countries, these 5, beside other countries like Egypt, for example, are making a long strides in the right direction. When I say right direction, I mean the economic direction, because
Amen to that.
it is
Yeah.
very important for India to have a strong alliance. I say alliance in the respect with Egypt as far as economic cooperation is concerned.
And Egypt is invited to share in the
Yes.
G20. So it's a
Yes.
kind of saying, yes, we are going to
Please.
support you to join this.
Please join us.
Yep. And there is this balance, if you permit me, in our foreign affairs ties, in our political, economic way to deal with countries all over the world. I mean, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi just returned from Paris, where he participated in the financial summit.
Yes.
And just in the very same week, this is our relations with the West.
Yes.
In the very same week, we
balanced
are
it.
receiving the Indian Prime Minister, meaning the East. So this balance, I think it's very important, and we are implementing this on the ground.
On the ground.
Our relations are based on mutual respect, on
Yes.
win-win situation, finding our way to achieve sustainable development. And would you please underline the word sustainable?
Sustainable development is very important for us and for India. When I see that India is creating a presence not in cultural field, because it is long established, but in the industrial field. When you say foreign investments from India in Egypt, it did not come today, but some years back, in the carbon black industry.
Green hydrogen.
Yes, and in the golden triangle of Suez Canal, and now in the catering area, also in the Suez Canal area. When you see the head of the Suez Canal Authority, this means that India is focusing its sights on Egypt, not only as a pathway to Europe, but also as a strategic springboard, will I say, to Africa, because we have very good relations and bilateral and multilateral trade relations with all African countries, and India is coming to make benefit of this, establishing a presence in the industry and in exporting products, Egyptian product, which is more than 40% in the cost, so it is Egyptian product to African countries when it is a
Sir,
result
also, I'd
of the
like to
cooperation
mention, if
between
you
two
permit
countries.
me, the global crisis the whole world are suffering from. I mean, with the 2 years under the lockdowns of COVID-19, and then more than a year now, or a year and a half to be accurate, 16 months of the Russian-Ukrainian crisis, the supply chain issues, the food insecurity, energy crisis.
Crisis, yes.
Hard currency, of course, inflation, interest rate hikes. I mean, a lot.
A lot, yes.
So now I think it's not a luxury anymore to find that this kind of cooperation among different countries, it's a must. It's not a luxury.
It came at a critical point for both countries.
To deal with the local currencies,
yes,
if we do have these deals, it's going to be for our best interest. And our here means our peoples. How do you see this?
It is a it was a tactful approach for trade and investment between two countries. But when we see, when the Indian rupee and Egyptian pound are used in trade between two countries, it saves a lot for both importers and exporters and for the industry in Egypt. Because in many cases we find that if we look to the balance of trade between India and Egypt, we find that is imbalanced. There is a deficit.
Yeah.
This difference between exports and imports, it can be compensated by direct investment from India in Egypt. And India was not lagging behind us in this respect. That is why when the Prime Minister of India is coming to Egypt, he is coming to establish the details of this strategic alliance and put it in practice. There is a lot which MOUs were signed, agreements were signed, and I think that India will be diverting its attention from other parts of the world to Egypt. Why? There is a lot India can gain by more cooperation or strategic alliance or strategic partnership with Egypt in industry, pharmaceutical industry,
tourism,
know-how, the transfer of technology, tourism, which is very important. I can say could be 40% of the volume of transactions between Egypt and India.
Out of the 1.4 billion, if we do have 1 million per year, this is going to be
just
such a
1
good
million
start.
Is a goal
and
which
above,
can be achieved.
And above all, security, defense,
yes,
counter-terrorism, because without security and safety and stability, no economic progress can be achieved.
This is something.
Well,
this a positive point.
Amen to that.
We have stability in Egypt. Good. Will I say? There is stability and stability for any foreigner who comes to Egypt. They are safe.
Yep,
this is very important.
Paving the way or saying that there are such safe environment for investment
very
here
important,
in Egypt,
yes.
and this is very important. Well, sir, as usual, I enjoyed our discussions. Thank you very much for your input and have a very good day.
Thank you very much.
We were very much delighted to have with us live here in the studio His Excellency
to the viewers.
Ambassador Ayoub Mahmoud Ayoub, former Commercial Minister. Happy Eid to you, sir.
Thank you.
Right after the short break, we are going to return back with more, so stay tuned.